Hello, everyone. My name is Katerina Borovinova. Today I am here with Jiri Kulich. We are both working for Center for Environmental Education SEVER that is located in the Czech Republic. It is running over 30 years in the Czech Republic. And we invited here Jiri as a director of our environmental center to present us basic principles about place-based learning. This recording is made for project called Community as a Classroom that was co-financed by Erasmus Plus program. And Jiri, now I will hand the word to you, and I will kindly ask you to introduce us place-based learning in following, let's say, 20-30 minutes.
Hello, hello to everyone. So as Katerina mentioned, I work for Center for Environmental Education SEVER, and I would like to share with you today some thoughts and some information about place-based learning. Before I will go to the topic, I just want to give small context about the work of our organization. We deal with sustainability education and environmental education mainly. We do this for about 30 years, and our programs are focused on students from primary schools to university students. And also we support teachers by different trainings and methodological support. And all our programs are based on experiential approaches to learning. So let's say approaches like hands-on and outdoors education, using different tools like simulation games and so on. So on this first slide, you can see some of our, let's say, pedagogical philosophy. And in this context, for us, for last 20 years, very powerful tool or important tool, educational tool, is approach to education, which is called place-based learning. And we connect it with different issues. So, for example, we use place-based learning as a tool for climate education also. And that's the reason why we have some experience with place-based learning and why we would like to share with you some ideas, thoughts, information about it. So just to start, maybe the first thing to do is to explain how we perceive the word place, or how it is perceived in place-based education. Place is, of course, physical space, physical locality, which we are attached to or which we belong to. So countryside and town, village, animals and plants, buildings, contemporary and historical, and so on. But important is that it is not only the physical space, but it's also the link of relations. So it's also community or different social relations in our surroundings. So we could also speak about place and community-based learning. And I think these two terms, these two approaches, place-based learning and community-based learning, are very close or interconnected. And there are some good reasons why to work with place in this sense of physical environment and also community, why to work with place in education, and why to deal with it in contemporary world. These pictures illustrate quickly some reasons for it. On the map of Sheffield and surroundings, in the right part of the slide, you can see, and you might know this picture, you can see comparison of distances which were visited by children independently, or which were visited in childhood by people independently. So it means without their parents or any other results, to play or to discover their surroundings. And there are spots of 4 generations. So the biggest spot in Sheffield. The biggest spot is from great-grandfather. Then there is smaller spot of the next generation grandfather. Then there is even smaller spot on the top of the picture of mother. And the smallest spot, the smallest area, which is of, let's say, contemporary child, the son. So while the great-grandfather in beginning of 20th century had chance to visit independently and discover independently his surroundings, even 10 kilometers from his home. This space, which is familiar to children, is smaller and smaller. And today, the general distance is, let's say, few hundred meters or few tens meters from the household. So this is one reason why it is good to focus on discovering of place and working with place in not only in education but in in life of children and also adults. And the other picture shows how our place is interconnected, or how the sense of place extends from the very close locality, from your homes and nearest surroundings, to the whole globe. And it shows that if we start with understanding our nearest surroundings, it helps us to understand and to have personal link or good relation to broader and broader part of the world, up to the whole planet. These are some reasons why place-based learning make sense in education. And of course, working with place isn't something completely new in education, but as a formulated approach to education, it started more than 20 years ago. It started in 90s, or it was named or formed in 90s. It started in United States, northeast of United States, New England. And there are many people in United States, but now all over the world, who deal with place-based education, place-based learning, who implement it in schools. And one of the key persons who promote place-based education is on this picture. It's David Sobel, and he wrote in 2004 very important book on place-based learning, which explained how important is to open school to community, how important is to invite to school people from municipal office, for example, or from local businesses and organizations, from nature conservation bodies, and so on. And on the other hand, how to move in education from classrooms to the field, to the community, to real environment, let's say. And the name of the book, Connecting Classroom and Communities, explains the main philosophy of place-based education. However, I mentioned then working with place in education isn't something new. There is a long history, and probably you have similar stories in your own countries and in our educational systems. But we in Czech Republic has, for example, tradition of working with closest things and with place which surrounds you, at least since 17th century, when a big pedagogue and reformist of education, Jan Amos Comenius, described some principles of education, tried to change the educational system, which in that time was very, let's say, stereotypical and very centralized and very academic. And one of his stresses was to start education from things which are close to children, which are imaginable to children, which children can touch, can observe, and to start with these closest things, and then to extend it to more, let's say, abstract issues. And later in 19th and 20th century, we probably, as in other countries, we had some other reform teachers who stressed the using the place or the region where children live as important tool of education. We had even some educational approach which was called pedagogical regionalism. So not to teach stereotypically the same substance or the same issues, the same topics in all schools all over the country, but to adapt it or to start from the specifics and needs of the locality where the school was located. So there is some tradition, and there are some reasons why to work with place-based learning. Some of these benefits or things are listed here on this slide. So place-based learning is educational approach which uses, of course, local environment, all the aspects of local environment, both ecological and social economical, and it uses it as the focus or as the unifying frame of education. But it also emphasizes involvement or participation or uh, engagement of young people and their partners in community in different useful activities, in projects or in useful services. So it focuses also very much on participation in solving, for example, local issues. And through this, place-based education builds social capital in society. So it improves the relations among people, and it improves maybe the ability of community to be resistant, resilient to different problems. And this regards not only students, but also, again, their partners from the community, the adults in the community. An important thing is also to stress that place-based education, in fact, is a way of education for sustainability. Of course, this is the reason why we work with it in our organization, because it's connecting or solving ecological and social economic issues, but solving it in local conditions which we can influence and which are familiar to us, which we can easily imagine what to do with them. And but it's also connected with other approaches or aspect of education. So very important link is with project learning, because the top forms of place-based learning are in fact project learning, where there is big space for independent planning and solutions of students themselves. And as I already mentioned, if I speak about place-based learning, it includes community-based learning. Maybe you can skip this. I can mention that we started with approaches which are close to place-based learning. We started in 2004, so 20 years ago. We have program School for Sustainable Living, which connect schools which try to implement place-based learning and try to make steps from simple lessons to very comprehensive projects, which are, for example, for the whole school year. Students, teachers, and also the people from community, from surroundings, describe some benefits of place-based learning. So there are some hints what might be these benefits. Of course, there are some benefits for schools and teachers and students, but there are also some benefits for communities and municipalities. Speaking about students, it's quite clear that there is some benefit for their relation to place where they live, to their identity, to their connection of the place, but it also helps to develop their key competencies. maybe most importantly, their action competence, ability to do something practical to change, believe that they can influence something in their surroundings. And there are also researches, at least in the United States, which shows that place-based learning also contributes to so-called academic knowledge, so that it even improves the results in mathematics or in languages because the learning is deeper. There are also some benefits for teachers, like place-based learning might increase our motivation to teach. And of course, important for teachers is that it raises motivation and involvement, interest of students. Students are more motivated to explore things. And for schools, besides these benefits, it might also bring some prestige, some position or acceptance in community, in eyes of local administration, for example. And as already mentioned, for the surroundings, for communities and municipalities, such approaches can improve the social cohesion in the village or in the town, and because it's quite often connected with practical projects for community. It might bring better environment, better social life. We will have some examples in few minutes. There is description of benefits of place-based learning from one head teacher, director of school in Czech Republic. I won't quote it completely, but just to give the summary, she stresses that it affected the climate of the school, it affected the quality of the education. She also mentions this position, a better position of school in the village now after working with place-based learning. And of course, this doesn't happen by after a lesson or after half a year of such work. But for example, this school for 8 years gradually worked on projects which were based on place-based learning. And every year they implemented some interesting project, local project in their village. Around this, they built a lot of their school education. We will have some examples soon. And speaking about benefits, here are some quotations of single students and teachers. The first quotations are quotations of teachers, and they illustrate that in place-based learning, quite often the borders between different school subjects are overcome. There are no borders more. Geography and history might be connected with civics as well as mathematics and physics. And also these quotations shows that teaching outdoors is effective. It is not just playing with children as some people like parents or people from surroundings or some teachers can think, but that it's on the contrary deeper and more effective way of education. And the set of quotation illustrates the rise of attachment of children to their surroundings, to their place. Children discover that the place where they live is really interesting place. They can be proud of. And the other important thing is that they discover that they themselves can change things, can improve things. And I think these two aspects of place-based learning are maybe the most important. So that you become proud of the place where you live, and you realize that you have some power. You can influence, improve something. While these were quotations of teachers, so the last two set of quotations are quotations of students. So one student say how lucky is she that she lives in such special place, and the other students say that he discovered that he can really do something important, and that he see that he and his schoolmates discovered during such work some hidden talents. So these were some illustrations, and to have it described more in more structured way, there were defined some principles for place-based learning. We in Czech Republic use these 12 principles. It's based on some US sets of principles, but we adapted and added something what was important in our context. And of course, these principles cannot be covered in one school lesson, but the more principles is covered in complex approach to teaching, complex approach to education, the more effective the education might be. So it's fine if you cover just one or two principles in your small lesson, but at the same time, it's good to be aware of all these aspects of environmental education and to have let's say, aim or direction to cover deeply as much of these principles as possible. And we will pass quickly through these 12 principles with some illustrations, just seeing this overview. I would mention that, of course, several of these principles are connected with how to work with the place. That place-based learning is not only teaching about place, but also in the real environment, and is also teaching for some improvement, for benefits of the place. But important is also that it's also learning through the place, so that through the local issues we can learn something more, something generally applicable to any place in our planet. And it's stressed that also adapting to local situation and personal relevance is important. So all these first six principles has something to do with place and with you as person. And the other six principles on the right side of the slide describe that there are some other important aspects which were already mentioned. Important aspect is active participation, active involvement, partnership with community, but also cooperation in the group of students and with other partners. Important aspect also, it was already mentioned, is interdisciplinarity. And the last important aspect is that place-based learning should be something what is not only free time or out of school activity, but it should be regular teaching tool used in mainstream curriculum, mainstream education. And a few illustration of these principles. So the first principle is quite simple. The place-based education is learning about place. It's good to have something concrete, tangible, familiar to students, which you can organize teaching around. It might be anything interesting what's in your surrounding. It might be local animal or a local memorial of war victims. And this memorial of war victims, which is on the picture in right, is example from this school where was quotation of the headmaster about importance of place-based learning, and they did a very interesting project about this memorial of war victims. We will see some examples while illustrating the other places. So learning about place, of course, it can happen even in the classroom, even in 20 minutes unit or 45-minute unit. But other important aspect is that place learning should be not only about place, but also in the real environment, in the real surrounding, so in the place. So as much as possible, it's good to go outside classroom and to teach in village or in in countryside. So this is what they did also with this memorial. They did a lot of work, a lot of teaching, working with this memorial. What they did, we will see on the other pictures. And the third principle is that it's also learning for the place. While learning, you can do also something useful for the place. So to do some helpful project for somebody in your surroundings, something what is connected service learning. So the result of the work of this school with the memorial of victims of the First World War was that they improved the surroundings of the memorial, and the memorial was hidden and a bit forgotten. So they, in fact, returned it to the life of the village. They made from it some central point of the village. Place-based learning, also learning through the place. So you don't stay in the village. You don't. It isn't only development of local patriotism, but through working with local issues, local topic, you can discover such issues like world conflicts or globalization, or we in SEVER work with place-based learning in connection with climate issues, with climate education. So you can easily, by local issues, illustrate, for example, impacts and reasons of climate changes. So it's also important, very important principle of place-based learning. And it work better, or it work well if you adapt it to local situations, if you explore what's specific or unique for your place, what would make your place different from other places. So adapting to local situation is other principle. And it's also important to find the personal relevance for the participants, for the students. So it might be the personal relevance might be that it's connected with stories of their families, for example, or it's connected with some their personal interests they have. And the base of place-based education is its base, and it's also one of the aims of place-based education is place attachment, that you feel attached to place, that you have strong relation to place where you live. As I mentioned, a very important aspect which place-based learning try to develop, especially in its most developed forms, is active involvement, participation of students. This is quite difficult sometimes for teachers to give children space for their own initiative, for their own thoughts, and for their own maybe faults. So this requires a lot of thinking and work, but it's very important and effective if children can participate as much as possible in decisions, in planning, and in implementation, but not only in implementation, but in decisions and planning. And we already mentioned that the partnership with community is important, with different stakeholders, which are listed, named here, the examples who might be stakeholders or who might be co-teachers with you in this approach to education. And we stress cooperation, that the tasks which are solved in place-based learning approaches are not individual tasks, but are team tasks which require some division of responsibilities, division of tasks. We already mentioned the interdisciplinarity, that we can combine different school subjects. And again, probably for the last time, I will go back to this example from the school which worked with this memorial to victims of First World War, because they not only discovered the history of this memorial, and not only improved the place, but they did a lot of inquiry or explorations there, and they combined mathematics and physics and biology. So they counted, they measured how what's the weight. They estimated or calculated what's the weight of the memorial, and by what lichens it is covered, and what this says about the how old is the memorial. So they really combined almost all the school subjects while working with this one subject, in fact. And the last, but maybe one of the most important principles is that we try to introduce place-based learning to mainstream teaching, to normal school lessons, not only to afternoon activities, but as a part of language learning and math learning and science learning and so on. And when we passed quickly through these 12 principles, it might seem that place-based learning is something overwhelming, something very extensive and not easy to do. So what I would like to stress, or what we try to stress, is that it's possible to start even with small steps to start to work with place with local issues and with place-based learning. That we can just adapt one lesson to this approach, and with these small experiences you can go further. So we illustrate this as a ladder of place-based learning, when you can climb on the steps of this ladder, and you can start with something simple, but you can achieve after some time something very complex. For example, whole school year project which connects different subjects and which includes some useful service planned by students, with a lot of students' participation, and there's a lot of community partnership. So this is, I think, important to stress that on one side, you can start with small steps, like small lessons, which might be even from other school, or we prepared some some lessons for other schools, or you can use some teaching tools like cards for reflection of local issues for children, or you can just think about your own lessons you already teach, but give them more local context. But you can go further and use some techniques which were proved by other schools, and which are described also in literature. So you can develop regional school books or regional texts. You can do a lot of mapping of surroundings, different ways of mapping. Some might be very challenging for children. You can do also method which is called questing, which is something like searching game or tracking game, when children on one side can develop such game, and on the other side can pass through it and discover their surroundings or some aspect which fit to your subject. And you can also use, connected with place-based education, some role games, simulation games, for example, to illustrate some positions, some interests, some relations in the community. So there is a lot of possibilities. And just at the end of this presentation, to give you once more some sense what might be the results or ways and results. So use some types of maps which children develop, emotional maps or maps of feelings, or of some important spots in the surroundings, and they might be handmade, but they may be also digital, or some easy analysis of the spot. It might be, of course, connected also with the arts. We didn't mention arts too much in the previous slides, so this is one illustration. You can go up to complex project, which, for example, we in Czech Republic have this program, School for Sustainable Living, which offers schools for the school year, place-based, learning-based educational project. There is just the scheme of the methodology of the project, but I won't go into the details. So well, that's what we wanted to share in few tens of minutes, and I hope that it might be helpful to you, that it show a little bit that starting from small work with place, you can go up to really useful service projects for your surroundings, such as which are illustrated in these last pictures. So I wish you good luck and a lot of joy with your educational work and with place-based learning.
Okay, thank you very much.